you. We back up in this thing. You can't roll with us if your last name don't got no loyalty. Podcast party poppin', but you already knew. I've been rolling with these folks. This that Monday night crew. Millennials versus the world like. Millennials versus the world like you. Millennials versus the world like. Millennials versus the world like you. Millennials versus the world. Millennials versus the world like you. Millennials versus the world like. Millennials versus the world like you.
Yo, what's happening, good people, man? Welcome back to another episode of Millennials vs. the World, the only spot you get authenticity and entertainment at the same time. We got a super dope show planned for y'all tonight. But first, I got to introduce my people. I got the ladies of Monday Night Crew, Miss Brittany, Miss Asia, Miss Princess. What's happening?
Hey.
Man, we got a very special guest, a certified sexologist that came to tap in with you. Bre, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Hello, everyone.
For sure. Appreciate you coming to tap in with us. Before we get into the nitty gritty and we go there, I'm going to throw it over to Brittany. We're going to get into some rapid fires real quick.
All right. So, we like to stir the pot a little bit. I'm going to just ask y'all some quick questions. Debunk the myth. It's kind of like true or false. You just say true or false, yes or no, how you feel. All right. First one. Love is enough to sustain a relationship.
False.
Yeah,
You need more than love to sustain.
Oh, man.
Always.
You do.
Yeah.
Always.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I stand
the base got to be
love.
The base got to be love. The base got to be love. Come on, y'all. Come on, man. I got to represent, man. I can't do that, man. Oh,
what more are you looking for?
Like,
if I don't love you, I ain't going to do none of the other stuff.
Well,
I ain't doing
that's
nothing
not
else.
the foundation. You have to have somewhere to build off of.
I give you that. Yeah. It is false, but I think it got to be the foundation. I'll say that. That's where I'll leave it at.
Okay. Asia?
Yeah, I said it was false.
Golly.
yeah, and I said false too.
I think we all did.
I know.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I believe that strongly.
Next one is sex is the most important part of a relationship. True or false?
I'm gonna say false. It's important, but not the most important.
Yeah, that's where you got me. I'm going to say false because of most.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Bre, did you answer?
I'm like, do you just ask the questions? You don't get to answer and add your input?
It's important. It's up there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, Princess, did I hear you say anything?
Yeah, I said false.
Oh, all right, my fault.
I said it as soon as she asked the question. It's false, but it is important.
Oh, okay.
It's important.
Okay.
Yeah, I said false too.
Okay. All right. I had to check.
All right.
Y'all can turn y'all listening ears on.
Let me hold my answer. Y'all, let me hold my answer.
No, we want to hear your answer.
No, it's false.
Okay.
It's false. It's false because I agree. Because of the word most. It's not the most important part of a relationship, but it's up there. Because never mind. You should be able to change your partner's mindset.
Change, no. Influence, yes. Change, no. Influence, yes. No, you can. That's not up to me.
Yeah,
I said heavy on that.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm not. That's when people get divorces. When you try to change.
I just feel like if it gets to a point to where you want to change somebody, that may not be the person or the relationship for you.
Mm-hmm. So, I agree. So I don't think it's a problem to want someone to change. I think when if they don't see the value in the change you asking for and want to do it on their own, I think that's when it get choppy. I think that's when stuff like, okay, I can express to you what I want to change or what I may need. But if you don't see the value in what I'm saying to change it and you do it on your own, we got to get up out of there. We got to get up out of there because that ain't gonna end well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I also think no matter how much you want a person to change, especially something like their mindset and their values, no one's going to change but themselves. Like the only person that's going to make the decision is that person, no matter what. So like
Definitely.
that could easily lead to other issues easily.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
not doing it. Hey, Brittany, you being real tight-lipped, bro. You
What
ain't
you want?
answering nothing.
Y'all,
Yeah,
I
we just want you to answer the question.
Thank you, princess. Like, we just asking. Can you answer it?
Y'all not about to get all beat. The false, right? I'm gonna leave it there. I agree with
Okay.
what you said, Keenan. Okay.
What? All right, Asia, what you want?
I don't know because I think it depends. I'm still in the princess line real quick. I do because I think there's certain things like I'm thinking more on like I guess the more mundane stuff, right? Like I think that if it's like I'm thinking about like cleaning an apartment. If I'm with somebody like I didn't know that they was I don't want to say dirty, but like if they liked a lot of clutter, for example, right? I would hope that because I am not like that, that I can change their mindset about their living space and how like in that way. So I'm thinking like a more the mundane stuff, but Kenan, to your point, I guess would be influencing, right? But I would hope that like if they see me doing like good things or beneficial things, that are like objectively beneficial, that would be something that like I feel like I should be able to change their mindset on, but not like bigger things.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm like stuck a little bit.
And to piggyback off of Asia, like I think changing the mindset is different from changing the person. Like there's a lot of qualities, characteristics people hold that just those are the things that they have to want to change for themselves. But changing their mindset about specific things, depending on what it is, that's where it's like, oh, okay, maybe I can change the way you think about this. Because it can go back to like your upbringing and how you were brought up, and that's all you know. But if you're introduced to something else, like a different way, there's a possibility that you can swing a change there. So I don't know. I'm in between. I changed my
What's
answer.
up?
I'll answer the next one first. All men are always ready for sex. True.
I think that's false.
Golly.
I'm gonna wait till everyone else answer and then I'll give my
Okay, so I'm a bit man. I'm like, always is aggressive. That's a definite. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Most the time, yeah, but not always. Bro, not always. It
99.9.
happens. 99.2. But that 0.8 go a long way on the wrong night. I'm telling you. It gets real dangerous if that 0.8 come out at the wrong time. Mess a whole relationship up, man. I'm telling you.
Oh my God.
I'm just being real though. Like that's the way. Nah, not always, but most of the time. But you gotta choose wisely when she ain't picking up.
Okay.
See, I used to think that, but now in my line of work, I've seen a lot of men actually are not. There's a lot that goes into the steps of arousal and the sexual response cycle and trying to stay in that mindset to where you can keep an erection, you can keep those feelings and desires going. So it's a lot that goes into it that can lead to pressure very easily for a lot of men I've seen.
So may I?
I could see that.
So Bre, are you just asking a question? Are you saying like there's I'm not placing blame or accountability on anybody, but are you saying there's instances where, so from your experiences, there are instances where women have to work a little harder than what they originally thought to keep that going? It's not just to show up and he ready all the time. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No, it's more so a
Okay.
lot of men don't know that there's a lot of things that goes on psychologically that can affect everything down there, like getting an erection, keeping it hard, like things like that. And a lot of men think like, okay, it should be just as simple as I show up, my dick is hard, we good to go. But in a lot of cases, there's other things that could be in your mind. There's stress factors, there's medications that you take that can all affect how your libido works. And a lot of men take that really hard too.
Yeah, that'll be a hard message to receive.
But it's all fixable. That's why this line of work exists.
Naturally, do you feel like it's all fixable naturally?
Yeah, definitely. Because again, if it's a psychological issue or it's something like medications, those are adjustments that you can make, like lifestyle changes for sure.
Okay. Bet.
Okay.
All right, y'all ready to get into it?
Wait.
Oh, my bad. Hey, look, man, y'all better stop me because I'm ready.
Hold on. I got 3 more and I gotta get through these because they're good ones. Cheating is inevitable.
I'm not answering that. I'm not answering that.
No.
I need somebody up here to fight with me on that one.
I'm gonna say false. I wouldn't say it's inevitable. There's a lot of factors that go into relationships, and there are a lot of different types of relationships that you can have. Ethical non-monogamy is a huge thing that a lot of people are exploring now. It's a little bit less taboo as it may have been in the last decade, that people can, experience and live in a very healthy way. But some people could also look at that as automatically cheating, trying to bring another person into a relationship. So it kind of just depends. What is cheating to that individual? What is cheating to that relationship?
Inevitable is really what's getting me.
Right.
Yeah, bro. That's
definite.
I'm like, these are very definite answers.
Yeah,
These are very situational, though.
Yeah. Inevitable is too much. So I'm going to have to say false.
I'm going to have to say false, too.
Simply because you said inevitable. So this would be your fault.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. The inevitable. It's like, if I'm being honest, I feel like do I feel like this is a good one? Do I feel like everyone has probably cheated in some form or fashion? Yes, but I don't know if they did it that they understood that they were cheating. But I don't think it's inevitable. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think people have been young before doing something they ain't had no business doing, and when you look back at it, it may have been emotional cheating, but you didn't realize that's what you was doing when you were doing it.
Yeah,
I think there's ways that happen, and everybody's been in a situation like that, but you've never oh, dag, bro. If somebody was to ask you, I'm like, no, I ain't never cheated. But when you look back at it as an adult, you're like, oh, dag, I had a little emotional jump going on back then. That's crazy.
That's a really good point that you bring up too, because we talk about cheating all the time. You hear it everywhere. And so when you bring up cheating in a relationship, it's automatically like, don't do that. That's a major act of betrayal. Everything goes to shit after that. But what we don't kind of do is backtrack to see, okay, what exactly is cheating? It's having those really hard conversations of, okay, we really need to set these boundaries in the relationship. And what may be a boundary to you may not be a boundary to another person. And a lot of adults specifically, we don't have this foundation. We don't have this framework when we go into dating and relationships and stuff like that to have these conversations. So that's a really, really good point that you bring up. And that's something that I see a lot with a lot of clients that I work with too.
Thank you, Bre. I appreciate that.
Oh Lord, we're gonna hear about this one.
Yeah,
Lord.
Here we go. Last 2, y'all. Monogamy is the only healthy relationship style. True or false?
True.
I think it's true.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean,
healthy.
Healthy is the key word.
Yeah.
Healthy.
But what's healthy for some may not be healthy to others. I don't know, I'm just a very sex positive, inclusive person, so I'm always going to be ethical non-monogamy, polygamous relationships. They're very valid. They can work for some, for others they don't. Monogamy works.
So I got a question, see, because when I look at the word healthy, right, I'm just how do you balance what healthy looks like when you're dealing with multiple people, multiple needs, multiple, just everything across the board is doubled because you're responsible for different individuals. How can that be healthy, or how do you make it so it's healthy in a sense? Because I feel like when we talk about monogamy, it's 2 people. We're worried about two people, and that's it, and what we're doing and how we can build in this relationship. When you start getting multiple people involved in a relationship, I'm just trying to understand how people can like manage that to keep it positive at all times.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree because I just feel like at some point it's gonna be too much. It's almost like, I don't know, it just popped in my head about like the whole argument of the Nick Cannon thing of how he keeps creating like all these different homes. But people are saying like, oh, like it's like he cannot split his time between 9, 10 kids, however many kids he has at this time. So I kind of think of it in the same form where it's like if you have like 5 girlfriends, how are you truly, like, I feel like somebody's gonna be the favorite. How are you truly splitting your time between the 5 of them? And what does healthy look like?
That's very valid. I think for me, it's just those relationships can look different for person to person. It's just like any relationship, even with a monogamous relationship. There's necessary work. There's necessary like foundations and things you have to set, having the discussions of your values, your boundaries, things like that in order to keep that relationship healthy, to create it and maintain. But then when you're talking about other non-monogamous relationships, that can look like different things. That could be one person dating multiple people. That can be like an open relationship where it's 2 people that may be more exclusive to each other, but then they see other people separately. Like there's different variations, but it all comes down to, are you discussing those boundaries? Are you discussing what's okay and what's not okay? Are we keeping up with the check-ins, saying, okay, you maybe going out on vacation is okay to see another person, but when we're living together in our day-to-day lives, that's a no-go. Like there's just certain regulations that happen in any type of relationship that I can definitely see that some people could explore in the non-monogamous relationships to still keep them healthy.
Yeah, I'm just not. Well, I'm gonna put myself out there. I ain't built like that. No.
Yeah, me either.
No. Yeah, I'm not. Hey, look, they go on that trip and have a little too much fun and come back and not be yours. No. Nah. Yeah, you tell her, go do what you do. She come over, she got a whole new number. No, sir. I'm telling you, it happens every day. I'm being honest. I'm not built like that.
Yeah.
And it's really important that you know that.
Yeah,
it's really
it
important
is important that you know that. Yeah.
Man, I'm not gonna go there. Y'all look at me like, because I just imagine, right? Like I gotta speak for everybody tonight. You know what I'm saying? I just imagine you got these rules and regulations, and say it ain't, that's the rule, but it ain't all smooth at home. And it's a 5-day trip, and she meet him on day 1. They basically in a relationship by the time they leave. Spending all day together. They at the beach. They had all this. They mess around and say, I love you or something before they go, man. Nah, dog. Nah, you got to come on back home. No, we go ahead and finish that.
Living out a fantasy.
Yeah, oh.
You
man, Bre almost made me say
I
something.
feel like that's worse. A whole fantasy? That's like,
yeah,
because that feels like something that I would be able to give my partner. You know what I'm saying?
Nah.
It's like you had to like go somewhere else to fulfill a fantasy, and I couldn't do that. That would be a lot.
But that's also important. Like the key is that everyone that's involved, they've had the conversations, they've come to an agreement, and they're following those certain regulations that they've set in their relationship. That's what it always gonna come down to.
That makes sense.
So my thing, and I'm gonna be quiet and we're gonna move on. My thing is, I don't believe you can keep feelings out of that. I don't care how much you talk. Like, I don't care how many conversations you have. I don't think you can keep your feelings out of that, man or woman.
For how long though? 5 days? Or you saying something ongoing?
But what I'm saying is, like, we keep having to talk, right? That's the rules and regulations, right? Mm-hmm. The person that leaves, I'm not putting a gender on it. The person that leaves is the person that's at home. Is not a good vibe at home, and it's still the rule, right? You go out there on a certain amount of time, and something happens, and y'all, you go have fun, and they just been all out here because they not enjoying this. It will be hard for your mind. I don't care what we talked about. If we're not in a good space and that rule applies and you go on a vacation, emotionally, it'll be hard to manage that because we're not in a good spot. But the rules are the rules. To me, that ain't applicable because jokers going to get in their feelings. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think.
And that's very valid. Like that's also a really huge thing when people talk about non-monogamous relationships is having that open, honest conversation about feelings of jealousy, feelings of betrayal, because I mean, we're human beings. No, when you say you can do something or you feel some type of way, that can change at any moment. And so it is really important to like continue the conversations, not just doing it once and just setting to one conversation, one set of rules and goals that you set 5 years ago. It's 5 years later. You could be two completely different individuals wanting completely different things in that relationship. It's definitely ongoing.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. No. That's it. I'm not even gonna get into the last one. Go ahead.
Yeah, go. Yeah, you can't have my. Hey, look, man. we about to get into the topics of the night. Man. All right, Bre. So before we actually get into all the things we're going to talk about tonight and some group questions, can you kind of tell us what made you become a sexologist, and can you explain exactly what it is?
Yes. So a sexologist is basically an expert on everything human sexuality. It's a person that helps people with their sexual or relationship concerns, either through practice, so like therapy, counseling, coaching, research. There's a lot of really great sex researchers in the field right now, especially Black women. A lot of really great research coming out in the most recent years. And then also in the education sector. So I do a lot of education, sex education, but then I also do personalized sex and relationship coaching too. But the reason why I wanted to become a sexologist, I'll give y'all the short answer, because it's personal.
Okay, we got time tonight. Oh, okay.
It definitely started personal. I grew up in a very heavily religious household, Pentecostal to be exact. So I was at churches where you had to wear skirts down to the ankles. Anything that was an inch above the knee, you were called Jezebel from the pulpit. I'm not even lying. So there was a lot of like shame and negative messages surrounding sex, sexuality, my body, and just curiosities that come up like as you're growing up, figuring out yourself and your body. And a lot of that shame and negative messages followed me into adulthood to where I made a lot of really bad, horrible sexual decisions. And then also got into very toxic relationships because like, when you don't know any better, you know, you're just trying to stumble through life and figure it out as we all do. But because of that, that led me to going on like a personal sexual healing journey. I was trying to figure out these answers to the questions and curiosities that I had. So I did a little bit of personal sexual research, and then really explored my sexuality when I got into college. And then I took this sexual health course at my undergrad, and that's where I found the field of sexology. And so I was instantly like, okay, yeah, this is it. Because I've also always been the person that like, I've never judged people on their relationships, their sexual experiences, stuff like that. So going into this field was like very, very interesting. It's very, very personal. And then after receiving my certification, I also witnessed like the lack of representation and like people that looked like me and had shared experiences. And then also other sexual health professionals that refuse to work with like Black people, queer communities, stuff like that, where we need to be having these conversations. We need to normalize spreading knowledge, spreading resources and tools so people can have, you know, healthier sexual lives and healthier relationships. So the work is definitely personal. I'm very passionate. I love what I do. And it really just keeps me pushing with the entrepreneurial spirit. So that's why I do what I do.
That's fire. That's fire.
Yeah. So we got a question for you, specifically for you, Bre. So what advice would you give someone dealing with mismatched libido in their relationship?
Yes. So first, libido, we're talking about sex drive. When it comes to sex drive, a lot of people do not know this. Desire begins in the mind. So anytime, we kind of touched on this earlier in the question discussions, anytime there's a lot of things that's going on in your mind, you're not going to be able to physiologically prepare your body for sex. And a lot of people do not understand that. The brain is the biggest sex organ in the body. So a lot of things like work stress, family issues, just anything that you think that you're pushing to the back of your mind that you're going to deal with later can actually be preventing that sexual energy from flowing in the body and preparing yourself to actually be active and engaging in sex. So for a lot of people, I would say the first thing is just to realize that it's not always something wrong with you, because people like to first go, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong or my partner is doing something wrong. Let's not blame anybody right here. Just, be very honest and open and real that in life, we're not always going to be on the same page. That's just reality, especially in couples that have been together long term. So dealing with those misaligned libidos or sex drive, a really great way to get back into being more present, to where you can kind of block out the outside noise, is to kind of practice like embracing sensuality, engaging all of the five senses, knowing that, okay, if you know you have kids at home or you live with family, prioritize having some space away. Get rid of the distractions. If you know that you have a lot of deadlines and work going on, leave your phone in another room so you're not reacting to the notifications that are going off, stuff like that. Really prioritizing being present with your partner, and ways to keep yourself being present and like keeping those outside distractions away is engaging sensuality, the five senses. So maybe getting like a massage oil, giving like a sensual massage to your partner. If you know you like certain scents, burning a candle with your favorite scent. If you like listening to music, make a sex playlist. Like these are things that even in the moments where your mind could be kind of floating back to the things that you're trying to keep from the forefront, you're able to be like, oh, okay, I like this song. Let's just focus on the beat. I like this position. I like how this feels. Let's just focus on this sensation, things like that. That's always like my for sure go-to. Embrace that sensuality and get rid of the distractions.
So may I?
Good advice.
Mm-hmm.
So my question would be, I appreciate everything. I love everything you said. But how would somebody know if that's affecting them besides if they partner plucking their nerve? Like, how would they know that that's the effect and it's not attraction and all those things? You get what I'm saying? Like a lot of times, if people don't know that, they may boil it down to what you hear or what they may think. But like, does that affect people in a certain way? You know what I'm saying? Or does it all look the same and you got to identify it?
So like, if you're kind of figuring out exactly what's going on, you're trying to get to the root of the cause, then naturally, if you can't find it, it's not obvious, you're going to just try to put something there that makes sense, right? But a good way to kind of like step back and not to, again, place that blame either on yourself or someone else in your partner that you care about, and that you're wanting to keep this relationship and this bond strong. Definitely go through the certain channels of either doing like mindful journaling, kind of like figure out, okay, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's going on. Also just being more aware of things that are going in your body as well. What kind of medications are you taking? Things like antidepressants, certain birth control, hormonal birth control methods affect libido. So if you know that you're taking these medications, you're on this certain hormonal birth control, having that discussion with your doctor, also seeing like another sexologist or a professional that specializes in sexual health, you would be able to get that knowledge and the necessary tools to either make adjustments, or to help foster those conversations with your partner to kind of get to the root of the cause.
Yeah. You just answered my question, because I feel like it's one thing to be physical. To wrap in a pretty bow, what you say is get your mind right and everything else will follow. But what happens when it's hormonal? And I just heard you say, of course, consult your doctor, because low testosterone, low estrogen, we know kind of leads to that low sex drive. But I'm a mother, right? Giving birth, all those things kind of play an effect. And even as women going through our menstrual, like all of that it kind of ties into some of those things hormonal. The question was advice, because sometimes men are not trying to hear the hormonal part of things.
Here you go. See, I was trying to stay clear. Here you go.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What I guess I can answer my own question in terms of like.
No, I want to ask her. I want to hear what she has to say. Go ahead.
No, because I like just always having that conversation of having them understand what we're going through, like hormonally, like what that looks like, and men too. It's like if they have low testosterone for whatever reason, and they have a low libido, like we don't understand that as women because we just had a conversation about rejection and like, oh, you're rejecting me, but what if they're going through something hormonal? So I think what I hear is just it's how important it is to have that conversation of what's happening in real time.
Yeah, for sure. And in a lot of cases, you know, naturally, like we fear the unknown, right? So sometimes just knowing that, like, oh, it's this implant that I have just because I don't want to get pregnant, or oh, it's because I'm taking antidepressants for ADHD. Like knowing the why can sometimes, you know, ease some of that pressure, ease some of that confusion, and prevent you from kind of like feeling like you're pressuring your partner or you're not being good enough for your partner, because I've seen it from both ends. Some partners will blame themselves that they're not doing enough, that they should be changing themselves to do something better to please their partners. And then on the other side, it's they feel like their partner's not doing enough, that they should be trying something different. So I've seen it from both ends, but kind of just knowing the actual root of the cause, having that open and honest conversation, being vulnerable about something like that, and then discussing the next steps. That's the key. After you know, discuss next steps. Should we continue on with this hormonal birth control? Like, why are we on birth control? Do I want to explore other options? Because there are many options of birth control, okay? Or
the rhythm
lifestyle changes. Like, there's a lot of different things that can happen. For sure. Now, what were you about to say?
I said the rhythm method is the best method.
No,
it is
no, it is not.
But I got but so Bre, let me ask this. In your experiences, which one is receive less? The hormonal conversation, or how can I say this without the woman's perspective being shared or the man's perspective being shared? Which one has been harder to get through to the other person, which seems less understanding of which when it comes to the question around sex drive? Does that make sense what I'm asking you?
Yeah. In my experience, usually it's harder just for the women to even want to have the conversation, because like, let's break it down. Like, as women, historically, we're not taught, you know, sex should be pleasurable for us. The reason why it's called, most people want to call it a vagina when really the technical term is a vulva, is because the vagina, being just the internal part, is all about birth and male pleasure. And so having those societal cues telling you your pleasure does not matter as a woman, and then being a Black woman or a person in the queer community or whatever you identify as, all of those different cultural contexts, religious backgrounds, like all of that can affect you even just struggling to want to have the conversation with somebody. So that's what I notice more in women, whereas a lot of heterosexual men specifically would be okay with having the conversation and wanting to figure out exactly what they can do to improve the situation.
So are you saying that when like it's the man's libido that's low, they're more open to having the conversation? Is that what you're saying?
Typically, yes. More so on the fact of just having the conversation in general, okay? Because sometimes I will say it is a lot of men going into it thinking that it's not them, that, you know, there's not something going on with them, that it's mostly their heterosexual woman partner. But then learning like, oh, okay, so this is why things like when we do this, I can't keep it up. Or this is why sometimes I feel a little bit of that performance anxiety. Like, again, it's just kind of getting the knowledge or the why goes a long way.
Yeah.
Hey, hold on. Hey, I'm so sorry, man. Y'all gotta forgive me. So, Bre, if I heard what you just said correctly, so you saying like some jokers jump in the pool, all right, and then get the drowning and got a bail out of there. That's a mental too.
Yeah.
For sure. Because think about it. Like if you're in the moment, okay.
Yeah. What is there to think about?
You're in the moment, okay. Everything is hot, it's heavy. We moaning, we're groaning. You're having a good time. But then you're like, okay, dang, am I hitting the spot right? Did she come yet? Is she going to come? She should come. Or should I come? Wait, I don't want to come too fast though. Those thoughts can make the penis go down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
especially for someone who deals with like anxiety and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't even know anxiety and sex can happen at the same time.
Yeah. It is a beautiful and complex thing.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not saying it can't happen. I guess that would seem like in a new. Hey, look, forgive me. I told you before. I'm asking my questions tonight. So, but wouldn't that be more so in like newer situations than like you wouldn't think that much if we've been here before, unless I get a signal. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like because if we got action, and she is or is not doing something, that will have to signal to me like, okay, I'm not doing something, versus me just overthinking that, or she faking, one of the two. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it can happen at any time, whether it's the early stages of a relationship or later on down the line. It's just like anything that's taking you out of that present moment can ruin the arousal state that happens, that is necessary for sex to continue being pleasurable for both parties involved. Y'all feel free to ask questions too.
So in that say, which part would you say is most important, like physical or emotional intimacy, when it leads into that said thing?
I would definitely say, emotional. Just because, like, kind of like what we just said, if your emotional state is not right, it's not working, you're not even going to get to the physical in some cases. So that's a very huge aspect. And then also when we're talking about intimacy is just the closeness of getting to know someone on a deeper level and that being reciprocated. And that can be shown and experienced in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different types of intimacy. There's emotional intimacy, there's sexual intimacy, there's physical intimacy where it's like non-sexual. So you're doing things like cuddling, kissing, dancing, more physical activities with each other that may be non-sexual. There's also like experiential intimacy to where you're creating memories, you're bonding with this person through shared experiences. There's intellectual intimacy, like the list goes on. And that's another thing that I like to tell every couple, or just even anyone that's like new to dating in their relationships, is try to explore those different forms of intimacy besides just emotional and sexual, just because it helps you get closer to that person. It strengthens your bond like in a more authentic way. It doesn't feel as forced. It doesn't feel as awkward because you're going through these experiences together and getting to know them better as well as yourself.
So hold on, wait. I'm quiet because I'm learning. And my brain is going. What happens if, or let me see, how do I word this? Have you ever had a conversation with a couple where the libido was too high? Like, because we just talked about like how it was low and what can affect all those things. What happens when it's too high? Like, are we trying to decrease it, or are we trying to bring the partner to that space to keep up with the other partner?
It's typically just trying to find the balance. So again, how you said, normally when we talk about libido and sex drive, we focus on those that have lower, but there are a lot of cases where a partner can be experiencing higher libido. And you kind of will work it the same exact way. You're wanting to have that conversation with your partner. You're wanting to get to the root cause of like, okay, I'm ready to go at any given moment. Like, this is what I know gets me there. These are my desires. This is what I would like to do with you. So having that conversation with your partner and bringing them in, like, what can we do together? Not what they can do, not what I can do. What can we do together that can make us both find a balance that works best for the both of us. That's usually how I like to approach that conversation, just because, again, like, no one wants to feel the blame. That doesn't get you anywhere, right?
So,
If the goal
can
is
it not be somebody's fault though?
Huh?
Can it not be somebody's fault though? I'm asking.
No, I mean, again, if it's something like a medication you're taking, we can't blame nobody but the medication. And in some cases, you may be taking that medication because it's necessary for your health and other conditions. So again, that just opens up another conversation where, okay, we're probably just gonna have to discuss and bring our medical provider in, and talk about either alternatives, other options. How can we go from here? But yeah, there's always gonna be any factor that could happen. My advice is just always try not to place the blame, and instead try to find the root and then make those adjustments that are necessary and find what works for you and your partner. Because what may work for your friends or what worked in your last relationship can be a completely different deal in your current relationship.
So I got another.
Can I ask something?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Everybody had a question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I love it.
Who are you saying? Go ahead.
Yeah, Princess. I'll go ahead.
Okay. So my question was, is there ever a time where it's like, is it ever a reason to leave when it's too high or when it's too low? Like, do you ever see it where it's just a straight up deal breaker and the relationship has to end? Where the one partner's sex drive is like libido is high and the other one is low, and then vice versa.
Typically, when it gets to that point, it could be due to either one person is not trying to get to the root cause. They're not trying to make those adjustments. They're not trying to keep this as a joint mutual beneficial situation. They're just, focusing on themselves or focusing on their pleasure. Or it could be something as far as like, because of that high libido, that leads to other outside decisions that can affect your relationship, like acts of betrayal, cheating, things like that. So there could be like, it is kind of situational. But again, it kind of just comes back to that intimacy. Is this being reciprocated? Are both people saying, hey, I just want us to have a healthy relationship. I want us to have great sex. What do we need to do? And how can we do it? And stay on this course to where we can do that and keep it that way. If one person is like, I don't know, or the other person isn't really trying to hear that, it's just not going to work. And over time, that can lead to feelings of resentment. That can lead to, again, doing outside things like acts of betrayal. That could lead to other, harmful tendencies. Like, it's all pretty situational. But the most important thing is, are you wanting to find a solution that works best for you and your partner in that relationship? And are you willing to continue putting in the work to keep that solution going? I hope that answered your question. I know I could talk.
No, it did.
But
it did.
That's why you're here.
And I want to make sure that, like, whatever questions you have, that I'm giving you knowledge, we're keeping it real, and that it's helping anyone else that's hearing this live that, may be thinking the same thing.
For sure.
Yeah. Asia.
Real quick. So going back to like the original question of like what's more important, emotional or physical intimacy, and your answer being like emotional intimacy, right? Like, does that change depending on how the person identifies? So, and why I'm asking that is because like a lot of times we hear like, oh, for the man, like it's more physical intimacy that seems to be more important. That's what stereotypically, that's what we've been taught, that's what we've heard. Do you feel, or do you find that it does depend on the individual, or is it like an overarching, like, no, emotional intimacy is like, it is objectively more important?
Well, yeah, like when we're talking about individuals, what works for one person can be a completely different story for the next. So for sure, one person can want and prioritize physical intimacy in their relationships over the emotional piece. It kind of just depends. And that's why it's really important when you are in these relationships that you're having these conversations with your partner, like, hey, what is important to you? Do you like cuddling? Because some people do not like physical intimacy like that. Some people would rather, spend quality time watching a TV show or having shared interests, engaging in more intellectual intimacy rather than the physical. Kind of like how people talk about love languages. I mean, it's everywhere. But when people talk about that, they're like, what works? Some people like, the more physical aspect. More people like giving and receiving gifts. Some people like words of affirmation. It's really important to kind of just figure out exactly what's important to you, and then having that conversation with your partner, asking what's important to them, and then seeing if those things align. Because the other side is when people see that those things do not align, but they're still trying to force it to make it work, that can also lead to conflicts in that relationship too.
All right. So real quick, we have a comment. Britt, what's up, girl? Britt said, what factors contribute to a healthy, fulfilling sex life, specifically one who has been in a long relationship?
Yes, thank you, Brittany, for asking this question. That's a really good question. A lot of really great factors that leads to a healthy, fulfilling sex life. Definitely prioritizing being present, prioritizing pleasure with your partner. That could look like, engaging sensuality, the 5 senses with your partner, exploring new things. And typically when people hear that, they're like, okay, is that talking about being kinky and bringing toys? Which, yes, that can be, if that works for you, if that's something that you're interested in, definitely explore that. But that can also just be exploring like different things, like a new position, wearing things like lingerie, like kind of giving yourself the grace to get curious and lean into those curiosities with your partner. And doing that with your partner, again, that's another form of intimacy. It's experiential intimacy. Having that shared experience that can take a relationship to a whole nother level. And typically when you have a good, healthy relationship, everyone's happy, everyone's fulfilled, that would also be reflected in the bedroom.
For sure. So I don't want to take all the group questions, but I got a question. So I thought about this earlier when you were talking about having the conversations and X, Y, and Z. Girls, forgive me if I'm skipping around in the questions. So is there a way, this is going to sound crazy, but I do want to ask. So would you say for people that haven't had as much experience, do you have to have this is going to sound so bad. Is the way to learn what you want is by having more experiences, or is there a way for somebody, male or female, to learn themselves without having experiences with others?
I would say being open to those experiences and curiosity. So that could look like physically experiencing those things, or that can look like doing your research, doing things like attending sex workshops. I make virtual sex workshops all the time on different things like pleasure and kink and things like that, to where you can just learn and know that the information that you're getting is factual, it's, healthy. And then that kind of can also give you an aha moment to where you're like, oh, okay, I think I want to look into that a little bit more. Or I think I want to have this conversation with my partner and see where they're feeling, or ask them about their specific sexual interests and kind of just go from there. But as far as saying that you have to have a lot of sex in order to be good at sex, that's not the case. No.
Hold on, let me clarify. Hold on, let me clarify. What I was at, so I get you, but what I'm saying is that how one learns? Boy, this is about to sound crazy, man.
Just ask it. Put it in the most simple terms. However you want to ask it. If you think it's crazy.
So, like, how would you learn what you like without actually doing it? Like, you could do research, you could go to workshops, but how would you learn what you like without actually experiencing it?
So that, again, could look like doing that research, doing the workshops, learning as much information as you can, and then also keeping that solo. So doing things like masturbation, doing mindfulness practices, having a pleasure ritual, things like that you have with yourself, because every relationship begins with self, right? So once you do that, then you can feel for certain that this is something that you're interested in. This is something that you want to explore a little bit more before bringing in your partner or another person into it. Did that answer your question?
No, that did. Okay,
good.
Hey, I'm trying not to say nothing too crazy. You know what I'm saying?
I've heard everything under the sun, so nothing can shock me. Say whatever you want to say. Ask whatever you want to ask.
Go ahead,
What is
Princess.
a
Nah, I'm good. Go ahead, Princess.
what is a pleasure ritual? Like you said, masturbate. Is it the same thing, or is it two? What's a pleasure ritual?
Why your hand go like that when you did that?
What?
No.
Keenan, to be honest, I got your face blocked. I haven't been looking at you the whole
Oh, my bad.
my clip for my selfie light is covering your face. I apologize.
But to answer your question, a pleasure ritual is just something that is personal to you. It's something that like a routine, like I say ritual as in like a routine, a practice, whatever you want to make, that brings you the most enjoyment and pleasure. So that can be sexual, like masturbation and sexual exploration, but that could also be things like taking yourself on dates, giving yourself flowers, giving yourself a good meal, treating yourself to shopping or something that you've been wanting for a really long time. All of those things bring you pleasure that may not be sexual, but it's still pleasure. So that's all I mean.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do you think that this question is specific for Bre, specifically for Bre? Do you think that there's such thing as bad sex?
I think there's such thing as learning. You can learn to have better sex, okay?
Say yeah without saying yeah.
No. And the reason why,
Yeah.
let me tell you more. The reason why I don't want to say bad sex is because sometimes when people are like, okay, if something's just bad, they're okay with just accepting something is bad. They don't want to work on it. They just want to be like, we just gonna throw this away and move forward to the next thing. There's always room for improvement. Okay. Pleasure takes practice. Good lovers are not, or good lovers are made, they're not born. And so it's really important to be able to say, if one experience was not the greatest, then how can I get to a better experience if you care enough? Okay. Because if you don't, then you, of course, you can always move forward and find the next better experience with someone else. But if you're wanting to have that better experience with this person, there are definitely ways that you can have that and make that a reality. There's always room to learn and for improvement.
So okay. So our next, no, you said Bre specifically. So I just had it. So the next question is like, how do you tell your partner you want to try something new when they're more reserved in bed? Like, how do you communicate that to said person when it's not libido basically necessarily, but it's like one person is a little more outgoing and the other person may be a little more reserved?
I would definitely say, think about it, give it some thought. Okay. Don't just on a whim be like, all right, let me tell you about this new thing I want to try. I heard about this kink and you didn't do your necessary research, because what could really happen is that experience goes horribly wrong. And now your partner doesn't want to try anything new ever again. So you definitely want to give yourself the right amount of time to think things through, do your research, ask your questions. Okay. And then also just like keep it lighthearted, include them in on it. Don't think that this has to be a burden or something that you have to focus on and figure out on your own. Definitely bring your partner into it. Again, that's intimacy. You're having that shared experience with one another, and you can learn a lot from just having those conversations too. Some things could really surprise you about your partner that you would never think that they would be into. And now you're having these new crazy experiences for the better.
So I heard you say, I want to try this new kink. What separates something from just being new and something being kinky?
So kink is all about anything that's like not normal or vanilla sex. So think of things, I think vanilla would be like just missionary, not switching up positions, not exploring any type of rough play, things like that. Kink is a whole world of extremes, but also there are some very non-extreme kinks that you could do, like dirty talk, sexting, recording yourself during sex. That's kinky, because that's not really considered vanilla, and more safer ways to experience kink that's not just BDSM. Because when a lot of people hear kink, they think it's all leather, ropes, and impact play, but there's definitely levels to it. I see y'all thinking. I see a lot of thinking.
I mean, I ain't trying to be on. You know, you know what I mean, I'm outnumbered.
What and this is anybody can really just chime in here. I guess like what do you do if you're into something, right? Or you're trying to take things to the next level, even if it's trying to connect on some emotional intimacy type things. And you try and bring that into the bedroom, but your partner has blatantly said there's certain thresholds, certain things that I will not do.
Hey, go ahead, man.
Going back to changing that mindset, that question that we had, do you think that this is now a time to have a conversation of what that looks like? Can it open the door to explore other, like, that cheating world? Or I mean, there's a lot of people that are reserved in that space of like, yo, I have a limit and this limit I'm not crossing. But then there's people that's like, well, I want this thing, I want to try this thing. Especially if you're married, you don't plan on having another partner in this lifetime because you're intentional about your vows. Like, what type of advice would you give to that couple?
I would definitely say if you had the conversation and you both were being vulnerable, you're both being open and honest, and just really approaching it as these are things that I would be interested in, these are things that I would like to try, and then try to bring your partner into that, and they give you a hard no or a hard limit, you got to respect that, because when you're trying to change someone's hard no, the sexual experience is no longer consensual. You know what I mean? And now that I kind of do take back for the last question you had about is there such thing as bad sex? I would consider anything bad sex as anything that's non-consensual.
Hell yeah, no means no.
To convince someone, change their yes to a no. I mean, change their no to a yes, or coerce them into having sex or just violating anyone in any type of way. Once that comes into play, it can be as simple as trying to change someone's no to a yes. That's still a violation. That's still a boundary that can be crossed. And I would say at that point, that probably wouldn't be something you would want to explore further with your partner. And if it's to the point to where the other person that's wanting to explore it, they're hard set on they still want to have that experience, even though their partner may not want to. Now the conversation has now changed to, okay, how should we be moving forward in the relationship in general, taking the sexual aspect out of it? Because at that point, it's a completely different situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if it is something like they're on the fence, or it's something like they've never heard of it, or they've just never experienced it, or maybe they're just a little bit nervous or shy about the aspect, that's completely different than a person saying, hell no. Okay. If a person's like, I don't want butt stuff, don't touch my butt, don't look at my butt, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't be trying to convince them otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But if it's something like they're like, I don't know, like maybe let's look into it a little bit more. I would suggest in a situation like that, definitely trying to make it an experience, maybe going to either like a pleasure-based workshop, or an event, or if you're wanting to look at toys or pleasure products like lubes and serums and things like that, kind of doing that together. And then that can, like, them being in the space to where they're seeing it, it's around them, they're able to ask questions, they're able to get their questions answered and get new information, then they may be a little bit more open to learning more and doing more.
Asia,
did you have something before?
I was gonna
did I hear you?
Yeah. I was just gonna say that, like, to Britt's question, even like if it's like a married couple, I think it's okay for the conversation to then be asking the more reserved partner, like what would they be okay with trying? Right? Because if there's one partner and like they want to explore everything and they know their partner's more reserved, they're not going to want to try half that stuff on the list, just so that neither person feels defeated. Because I feel like in that instance, the person that's more reserved might feel like, dang, I can't do anything to please my partner, or like everything they want to try, I'm shutting it down. I feel like guilt can come with that, and now they feel ashamed even being intimate, physically intimate. So I think that would be a good time to have a conversation around, like, what would be some things that we would be willing to try together, right? Or what are some things that you are comfortable with, with me trying and exploring?
Make it mutually beneficial to where everyone that's involved has a say, everyone's discussing those interests, those desires, and are open to continue discussing those interests. For sure.
Asia, do you think that those conversations should be had before marriage? So like you're well aware.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally think that should come with all the other conversations, because if we just said, especially even like in the myth or all that kind of stuff, like that sex is an important part of marriage, that for me would be like, why would we not talk about that in some capacity if we're going to talk about things like finances, if we're going to talk about things like how you want to raise your kids? You know what I'm saying? I feel like if sex is that important, it should also be a part of the premarital conversations if marriage is the ultimate goal.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't want to. I got a question, bro. I got a question. So all consensual, no funny. I got a real question. It's gonna sound crazy, but I got a real question.
Okay.
So without placing blame. So you have people that when they're indulging, say in alcohol or whatever their vice may be, their drive or what they're open to is way crazier than what they may not be open to when they're sober. Right? Would that be a same type of boundary that you were talking about when you're talking? So meaning like, say you're in a relationship. Boy, this gonna sound crazy. Y'all on vacation and some things go on vacation that don't go other places, right? And because the vibe of vacation. Is that the same type of boundary when you having a conversation and then like, oh no, I don't do these things. But when we was on vacation and we was lit, you told me you don't do that.
So when we're talking about consent, anytime a person is inebriated, either they're under the influence of alcohol or any type of drugs, legally they can.
I'm saying your girlfriend or boyfriend though. I ain't talking about
I'm
nobody
just
else.
saying, no. I hear what you're saying, but I just also like to point that out, okay? Because a lot of people don't know that. I'm a huge advocate for education and knowledge. All right,
for sure.
So when it comes to situations like that, of course, when people are, under a certain influence of a drug or an alcohol, they're going to be a little bit more open to things that they wouldn't want to explore when they're sober. So definitely exploring that very carefully in your relationships and with your partner, and still just like taking those extra steps of having that consensual conversation of, are you sure? Okay, let's make sure, and then kind of like leading up to that. But if they're still kind of fighting on the I don't know or maybe, I would say don't push it. No. Because that may lead to feelings of regret the next day. And that can be a whole nother issue in your relationship too.
Yep.
Yo, I'm not. Hey man, I feel like I need Jay Lewis dot somebody, boy. So I agree. What would you say? How does somebody that's struggling? So I get what conversation you have, but could you give some tips on how you would initiate that for somebody struggling to have that? I want to try more conversation from a blank place, from a ground zero. Like, how would they start that if they aren't used to having that conversation to push that forward?
Definitely looking into things like sexual scripts. And this is something that this is more of like a professional conversation that I have with my colleagues, or like if you see anyone like a sexologist or a sex therapist or a coach or something like that, having these set conversation starters. That's the best way I can explain it. Having these conversation starters to kind of help give you the language to where you can have the conversation. Now, I'm not saying to just hold up a script and read it word for word with your partner, but it kind of gives you like a starting point or an idea of what you can possibly say, how you can word it in order to have that conversation with your partner in a more natural, organic way. Because sometimes people just don't know. So that could definitely be a really good step, is trying to look into bringing in a professional that can kind of help give you those tools to help aid you in that situation.
Fire.
Let me ask this real quick. It's
Bre,
it's on the same line, but just like resource wise, right? Like is there a particular like sexologyfordummies.com? Like if I don't have access, let's say, to a
That's
sexologist, or I
good.
don't know where to look, for real, is there like a website that people can go specifically that you would recommend that's like, hey, this might be a place that they have these sexual scripts, right? Didn't even know that thing existed, or something like that. Do you have any like that you can think of?
So when it comes to the specific sexual scripts, because that's a little bit more personalized information, you may not be able to find that on like a more public platform. So like I can't really give you like a public like base platform to where you could be able to find something like that. But I would say a good way to start is definitely like following specific sexologists or sexual health practitioners, to kind of see like if they're posting content along the lines of that. I know I've posted content about like relationship check-in, with relationship check-in questions and like tips on how to keep things spicy in the relationship, how to have conversations about foreplay and stuff like that. So like it kind of just depends on like what you're specifically looking for. The best bet would be either going to specific like social media platforms or getting connected with specific sexual health professionals, or for just basic sexual health information or sex ed, you could look at things like Seekis. Beducated is a really good resource that goes into great detail about specific like sexual intercourse and things that you can explore with the partner. Some things do require payment though. So like as far as free resources, there's not a lot out there, or you would just probably have to spend a little bit more time searching for.
Oh, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. I got. Brittany, go ahead. I'm going to ask. Don't get it twisted. I'm going to ask. I'm just waiting.
Okay. One of the questions we have here was letting those external pressures, I heard you talk about it earlier, affect your levels of intimacy, and how do you navigate this? So when there's work, when there's kids, when there's finances, all of those stressors that come into play that really take over your mental space, you want to actively engage, right? Because you want to be present with your partner, but you're not in the right headspace to do that. This is a two-part question because I was actually going to ask something off of what we have.
Mm-hmm.
How important is foreplay? And is it necessary, right, for every single time you have an encounter? And I only ask that because foreplay can kind of get your mind in a different space when you are experiencing all those stressors before engaging in sexual activities.
I would say, okay, to answer the first part about foreplay is very important. I'm a huge advocate for foreplay, especially for my ladies with clitorises, okay? Because specifically those with a vulva, it takes you anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes to become fully aroused. That means for the body, physiologically, for blood to flow to your vulva, to your clitoris, for everything to get engorged, for those erectile tissues to get prepared, for the vagina to get wet, things like that, it can take up to 45 minutes to happen. So without that foreplay, without doing things like the kissing, exploring the erogenous zones, like the neck, the ears, the chest, like there's so many different pleasure spots on the body that you can explore, besides just jumping straight to core play or just sex. Because some people see sex as like the meat and potatoes, and foreplay is like the appetizer. But you know, I'm a person, I love appetizers. I love going out to eat and having all my little options. And it's necessary for those that have a clitoris because it takes you literally a longer time for your body to prepare for sex. And so when you're wetter, when you're more aroused, you're going to have a great experience as well as your partner. So it's very, very important. Foreplay is very important. And then also on the aspect of trying to get rid of those distractions, get rid of those stressors, that will also help you do that, because statistically, the more foreplay, the more engaged and aroused the person is, the higher chance you have of an orgasm. Orgasms help with stress reliever, okay, it lowers cortisol levels, it helps with renewing the skin, it helps with better sleep. Like there are so many benefits to just having an orgasm. And without that necessary preparation of the body, you have a lower chance of experiencing that. So I would definitely say do not skip the foreplay ever.
So my question that kind of leads into that, not leads, but kind of bounce off that. I want to go back for a second. When you were talking about earlier, there's no such thing as bad sex, but there's only learning.
Mm-hmm.
So do you, in your experiences or in your expertise, can you teach anybody anything? Meaning, if it is a person that's learning, even though we 35, so a person that's learning and they doing it right, can anybody teach anyone what they need, or there are some mismatches in sex partners?
I mean, there are so many variables when we're talking about that like you can't really say a for sure. Because I mean, there are limits to people's abilities. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can say you want to be this person that can have sex for hours and can do all these positions and be flipping around in the bed, but if you have bad knees, you're gonna have to adjust. Like, there are just certain things you're gonna have to do, and that's just real. So I mean, there is definitely room. That's a part of the learning, is figuring out what exactly can you work with, what you got to work with, and how you can use that best. So I'll just leave it at that. Yes. There's definitely room to learn, but keep it realistic.
So, because I ain't hear what I was saying, let me ask a more blunt question. Do you think it's any instance where if somebody's libido, sex drive, pleasure, anything, where it's time to cut ties? Like, all right, this ain't working. We got to go.
I mean, yes, I believe in sexual compatibility. If you've done everything to try to make a sexual relationship work and it's not working.
What about the first? What about?
I don't know if that's what you want to do.
Hold on, let me tread lightly.
Because I need to make
I forgot where we were.
A couple of people. Just because they can't make you come if you haven't tried something new to make it work. But if you have tried and it's not working, then that person may not just be sexually compatible with you.
So are you Bre? Are you saying that redemption round is necessary? Because
it's necessary. That's
come on, yo, that's foul, bro. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I'm about to say something after that. See, we about to go there. Bre, I got a question for you.
Okay, now we're getting to the real questions. Okay.
What's your thought? What's your thought?
I'm like, y'all are keeping it very cute, but like, yes.
Hey, look, nah, not me. I'm just representing the area man, so I got to tread lightly, but I'm done with that. We got those questions. So my question is that in those instances, when we talk about a redemption round, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some factors that may play into like it not being as pleasurable for him that women may not be aware of? Because guys 9 times out of 10 get the end result regardless of the interaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are some of the factors that may play into it not being as pleasurable for him than is traditionally has been?
I know fellas are not going to want to like to hear this, but sometimes it could be that either you weren't focusing enough on the foreplay, that person's not being fully aroused.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if they're not properly lubricated, yeah. If it's a little bit dry, if things are a little bit too tight to where it's painful, because that could also happen with lack of lubrication in the vagina, that can lead to more painful sex for both partners. Then yeah, that can lead to a less desirable outcome. But did you go through the proper channels of the foreplay? Are they on certain medications or birth control or certain detergents? There are certain things like laundry detergents in your underwear that can lead to vaginal dryness. A lot of people don't know that either. It's so many things that can throw the body off. It's really crazy. Like, these are just the things you got to think about. You got to.
So how much is it that person's responsibility to know what you want and what you like in order to give people the game on how to do the foreplay?
If you care about having a mutual pleasurable experience with that person, emphasis on mutual, not just your pleasure, you want them to be just as pleased, then that should be the goal. It shouldn't be your orgasm. It shouldn't be just their orgasm. It should just be that both of you receive pleasure, because sometimes pleasurable and good sex looks like no orgasm happening at all, but that could still be really good sex. You know? So it's kind of like the perspective of it. Like, are you going in with the right intentions of wanting to have both of you having a mutual pleasurable experience, and kind of just go from there?
But wouldn't that person need to know what's pleasurable? So I agree with you, wholeheartedly agree with you there. But what I'm saying is, wouldn't that person need to know what they like in order? So when we talk about foreplay, how important it is, right? Wouldn't that person need to know what good foreplay is to them in order to be able to communicate that to their partner? So if foreplay is important in something, but somebody doesn't necessarily know their avenues to it, like back to the question I kind of asked earlier, this is gonna sound ignorant, but I mean it. I just don't get how somebody will be able to learn that without having experiences. Like, you gotta actually experience something to say, like, this is the type of foreplay I like. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's I would say it's a little bit of both. And that's why, like, I kind of answer my questions broad, because I like to include a way to answer even the questions that aren't being asked. You know what I'm saying? So, like, yes, you should be having these experiences, whether that's you exploring your own body. If you know that you like your ears sucked on, if you like your nipples kissed on, like, that's important for you to know, so you can tell your partner so they can do that to you in order for you guys to have a good pleasurable experience, right? But for some people, they don't even know if that's possible. Some people don't even know that it's possible to have a nipple orgasm. They don't even know things like an erogenous zones, the pleasure centers of the body, to even start thinking about how to explore that for themselves or another person. So that's why, like, I kind of answer it a little bit more broadly. But yeah, you definitely should be exploring those personal things that work for you, that get you to that point, so you can share that with your partner, because again, that increases your chances of having more of a pleasurable experience. Closed mouths don't get fed. So, like, if you don't know, or if you don't ever say it, then what are we doing?
So,
you know?
And
I
also think too.
go ahead.
Hold on, Keeman. Because I also think, like, even if you enjoy something with one partner, that does not guarantee that you're going to enjoy that same thing with the next partner.
So you need to have that
Because, like,
conversation
so it could be like,
over and
so it
over
could be like,
again.
with each partner, right? Because I'm
And
like,
even,
if somebody's
and I would
trying
also
something
like to take
new,
it a step further and say, even if you're still in the same relationship with the person, what worked for you when y'all were together maybe 10 years ago, 10 years later, you have a completely different body, okay? You have a completely different chemical makeup. You may have new things that you haven't even explored in this new body that come into play. Like, you're in a completely different playfield at this point. So, like, also keeping in mind that, yes, you should be exploring this with every new relationship you're getting, every new sexual partner you have, but also keeping that alive in your long-term relationships and your marriages and things like that as well, because people change, bodies change, situations change, and people learn more things about them every single day.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Princess. I'm sorry.
How often do you see where people don't actually explore with their own bodies?
A lot, but I will say it's more common in heterosexual women. Just because, again, there are so many factors, like society-wise, or depending on, like, your cultural background. If there's a lot of shame and guilt that you grew up about exploring, you may be completely afraid to open that door, right? So you have to, like, work through some of that sexual trauma. You have to heal from those things before you can even start the conversation of, how can I explore this? Especially bringing another person into that, right? So there are definitely, like, certain levels and steps that you should be taking. And again, the first, like, great, amazing step is just knowledge, learning, like, getting the specific terminology, the specific wording, just learning about new things. I don't know if y'all realize, like, I've been teaching for years. I've seen every single one of y'all throughout this live have an aha moment. Like, something clicked for you. You made a mental note to either think about, look into later, talk about with somebody else. Like, those moments are so important. And I just want to encourage, especially my people, my folk, keep those conversations going. Keep those curiosities open, and don't be afraid to explore that on your own and with your relationships and your partners.
So I, you know what I'm saying? We out here. We in this thing. It's Monday night. You know what I'm saying? I got a couple more, then we're gonna get to this fair foul. So, and this might be a little out there, but I really do, in the name of normacy, right? What are some of the biggest sexual taboos that we see or hear about that's really happen more than what we think? So what are some of the big ones that you see or that you hear about that's considered taboo, but it's like, nah, you just ain't no freak for real? I shouldn't say it like that, but you get what I'm saying though.
So that's a taboo, but it's actually normal. Is that the question?
So I'm saying, like, you know, we live in, I do got to say this part right. You know, we live in a time where like a lot more things are being seen, and a lot more is considered. A lot more is considered. It's not normed. Like a lot of things we see now, we ain't really hear about coming up as millennials, right?
Right.
But like they really normal for real, but we think it's taboo. Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Okay. Yes. Now I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah.
Because that is true. Like we're exposed to a lot more. I mean, there's porn on social media every single day. You know what I'm saying? Like you see and hear these things everywhere you go. But I would say some examples would probably look like things, foot fetishes, people exploring more fetishes, not really thinking that, like, when people think of a foot fetish, they think it's something like you actually fucking a foot. Oh, can I cuss? I don't know.
Yeah, do your thing.
Yeah.
You hear?
But thinking like, that's what that means. But for some people, it's just like you like a partner with pretty toes. And that's pretty normal, but some people don't think of it as like an extreme. But some people also see that as an extreme. So like it can kind of vary. Some other things I've been seeing would probably be things like praise kinks. A lot of people have been talking about that in social media.
What is that?
What did you say?
Praise kinks.
Yeah, what is that?
So a praise kink would be, for example, if you're having sex with someone, this could be someone that may have like a words of affirmation love language, but basically they like being told nice things during sex. So things like, I like the way you do that. You look so good doing this, like stuff like that. Hearing that takes them up another level. More people are exploring that. I would also say dirty talk. In the kink world, it's called degradation, to where you're calling a person out of their name, essentially, but it's consensual. They agree to it. They like it. They get aroused and turned on by that. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. It's a whole world out there that a lot of people don't know, or either they've cracked the door, it's wide open. It just kind of depends on your perspective and what you're willing to experience.
So,
Keenan boy. That boy Will Sterling. Get it out.
I thought you had a clip on me, man. I thought you had me blocked, man.
I took it off. My camera died. So go. I can see you now.
I love doing this just because a lot of people don't know. Like, that may have been something you're like, okay, I'm gonna look into that a little bit later.
I ain't never seen Keenan out here like.
He's never been speechless.
Hey, man.
That's crazy.
Hey man, it's over, man. Let's get into this. Let's get up out of here.
No, go ahead. Ask your question.
Oh, I ain't gonna lie, I am. All right, so oh man, this is reckless.
Say it.
Look at y'all telling me to say everything reckless while y'all just staring at me. Hey man, go ahead, man. So hey, look. So let me ask you this: do you think I really gotta say how I'm gonna say this. Okay, so when it comes to like sexual fantasies or whatever people may envision or whatever they want to do, right? What would you say is one of the things? How many people would you say actually explored a sexual fantasy that you experienced? So like, how many people have actually explored what they have a sexual fantasy about versus how many people have it and don't explore it? Does that make sense? Like, how many people do you come across and you sitting down with them and they're like, oh yeah, I really want to do that. And they might be like, oh, well, you ain't never told me that.
I would say it's more so more people have not explored their fantasies. Because some people are kind of like, especially if they're in a relationship, they don't really know how to bring that up to their partner, or they can be afraid that if they have a specific fantasy, their partner may take that personally, like they're not their fantasy. Y'all get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
the partner, they're afraid that their partner may take it personally, so they don't really want to start the conversation of fantasies. But having fantasies, it's definitely normal. Okay, and it could be a whole range. It doesn't have to be something extreme. It can be something very simple that's personal to you.
Got you. So we had a young man say he likes that praise kink thing. Is that normal for like guys to like that's typically?
A young man?
Yeah, there's a lot of men that want to be talked through it just as much as women. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you would say that that's very uncommon for women to talk through it versus a man, right? Or would you say that it's even?
You mean to talk him through it?
Talk him through it.
I would say, yeah, in my personal experience, I haven't seen a lot of like people or clients that have outright said that's what they do with their partner, that they talk him through it. Usually it's just like they're wanting to see how they can get to the point of dirty talk during sex, because some people think talking during sex is very awkward.
Yeah. So I've heard that a lot.
To overcome first.
Yeah. I've heard people say, like, what are we talking for?
Okay, because some people like it just to be quiet. Some people like, that's also another kink, oralism. Some people like the noises that happen during sex, like moaning, the wetness, the, you know, your bodies smacking against each other. People get turned on about that too.
Silent sex is crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, yo,
that's wild.
So so Marcus Sell said, yeah, that's him. I'm assuming the quiet part that you were saying.
The quiet part?
He said I like all the noises. Roar.
Whoa.
Hey, look. If you like it,
Brittany said, how do you build their sexual stamina? How would you address if your partner comes too fast?
Okay, so a really great thing about sexual stamina, especially usually when I work with people with sexual stamina, it's from the viewpoint of heterosexual men that are wanting to keep their erection longer during sex. A really good way is to kind of like practice more mindful techniques during sex. So like instead of going super fast, doing the pounding, you know, going to Pound Town and stuff right away, slow it down, do a little bit more deeper strokes, doing certain positions that foster more intimacy to like, so you have more eye contact, you can touch more body parts of your partner. And then also using things like cock rings, wearing a cock ring where it's like, dang, if I had my toys near me, I would be able to actually show y'all. Wait, actually, never mind. We're on YouTube. Just kidding. But there's a ring that you can put at the base of the penis that will actually help keep the penis erect longer during sex. And they make vibrating ones to where it's, depending on whatever position you're in, it can come in contact with the clitoris of the woman. So both of y'all experience more pleasure. It's a lot of options out there. But I would definitely say trying to have more of those mindful practices to where you can be more present in the moment. But if you're wanting more of a like practical fix, look into cock rings as pleasure products. And if you don't know where to start, reach out to me or my social media. I can help you with that.
So how?
Wait.
So
hold on. Wait, hold on. This is
Stop at the cock
all
ring.
that stuff is if right, is if we need him to be more erect, I guess, the whole time. But what if it's like, whoa there, slow down, like you like this is happening all too fast? Because what if like the foreplay didn't happen, or maybe it did, and it hasn't been the 45 minutes time, right? And like she needs or one person needs for him to slow down. How does that conversation happen when it's like you're always doing a lot all the time?
So I would say, I mean, it kind of just depends on the timing. Are you wanting to have this conversation while they're inside you, or would you be open to having a conversation after sex? Because
You are the
if
expert.
you're
What would you
if you're
suggest?
saying,
Like,
hey, slow down. Wait, what'd you say? You cut out a little bit. Sorry.
She said you're the expert.
I just said you're the
What
expert.
should you say?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, like, if you're in the moment and you're wanting to slow down, that could look like asking to switch positions. Maybe in a position to where you're in a little bit more control. So, like cowgirl or riding, to where you can control the speed, you can control the flow a little bit more. That's a good go-to. But if you're wanting to have the conversation outside of sex, that could still look like talking about, let's explore a little bit more frequencies. I like whenever you go slow or you do these strokes versus the fast pound town, or just saying like I'm in the mood for pound town or I'm in the mood for slow R&B making love. Is a lot of ways you can have the conversation.
Why y'all see me laughing? We got some crazy comments in here real quick, man.
I'm sure you do.
I'm reading them too. This is insane.
Yeah. So Marcus Sellers, I can make any noise she wants. I have a great bird call. F1 says, see, that's my problem. My lady be having me weak. I walk into the club and shoot, no negotiation.
That's wild.
Whoa.
And
Does she?
I'm not even gonna say what. And this young man said, I got to get my ring resized.
Okay.
All right. Please take that comment down. Please take it down.
Hey, so this is my question, Bre, to you in the name of what you just kind of brought up. When, where, and how would you say to bring? Where's your stance on when toys are appropriate, when they're not? How do you bring in the introduction of wanting to bring in sex toys?
I mean, I think everyone should explore or have a toy. I'm definitely the type of friend, I've gifted every single person around me a sex toy or a pleasure product. There are so many different options out there. They're not just for women or those with the vulva. There are a lot of options for those with the penis. It's kind of just like what you're open to using. Or if you don't want to use a specific toy, you can explore other things like blindfolds, other sensory objects, like feathers, or like, if you want to be tied up, like having rope and things like that. Specifically rope from a sex store. Do not go to Home Depot or Lowe's because you will hurt yourself. Do not do that. Get the specific ones from the sex stores. But I would say definitely approach it as, again, being open to the curiosity, doing a little bit of your research, definitely from a trusted source. And then, approaching it just like you would exploring anything else sexually with your partner. Keep it lighthearted. Make sure it's mutually beneficial. So you're bringing them into the experience. You're asking what they may be interested in trying with you. And then going from there, either going to shop together, pulling in another person that can help, get the details. Because one of the services that I offer, not to plug myself, but shameless plug.
Oh, definitely do that. Do that.
If you to kind of cut out the middleman, for some people, like going to a sex store, it could be very overwhelming, and it can also be very expensive if you don't know specifically what you're looking for. I offer a service, pleasure product consulting, to where we would have like a 30-minute one-on-one call where we can specifically talk about what you're looking for, what your partner's looking for, what are things you've tried in the past, what are some things that you're interested in exploring, and then I can curate a personalized list of specific products to offer to you. And then if you want me to get those products for you and ship them, I could do that too. So definitely be open to the different options that are available to you if you don't want to physically go and shop.
So I'm not being funny. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Princess.
Hold on. I got a question, like kind of along the same lines, but about lube. So when is it a good time to kind of like bring that in the bedroom or talk about it? Because for some, it could be offensive.
So I get what you mean. There is a stigma on using lube, but I love lube. I feel like we should normalize the use of lube. Just because you're wanting to bring lube in the conversation, and doesn't necessarily mean that your pussy is dry or someone's doing something wrong. It just helps make things better. Like, you can't go wrong with it, honestly. But I will say, if you are going to use lube in the bedroom, know the specific ones that you should be using with things like condoms. Latex breaks down with oil-based lubes or oil-based products. So definitely, if you want to use condoms having sex in a lube, get a water-based lube. or a silicone-based lube. And then certain toys are made out of silicone, so you want to stick to either a water-based or oil-based lube with certain silicone-made toys. So just be aware of the different lube options that are out there, but definitely be open to using them because it just makes everything better and wetter.
Mm-hmm. So I got a question though. I heard you say there's a lot of sex toys for penises. What are those besides the ring you was talking about? Like one, you were saying everybody should have one individually.
Yeah, so there are things like strokers to where like most people they think of like the fleshlights, but like that's a lot. For some people, they have a little bit more toned down version. There's a stroker to where sometimes it can be made out of like silicone and it has like either like bubbles or ridges in the inside. And it's kind of like shaped like a donut. And so you would put that on the penis and like stroke with like lubricant. It's also a really great tool to use if you want to have like partnered sex, like oral sex, for a person to use that while they're giving oral sex on a penis. That could also be a really great tip. Then there are also things like, if you're into exploring the prostate, things that could do like a prostate massager. I'm trying to think what else would there be. If you're open to exploring other erogenous zones like the nipples, because everyone has nipples and everyone's capable of orgasming from them, including men, you could stimulate the nipples with certain toys too.
All right. No. Do y'all have any more questions before we get into this fair or foul?
No. I do want to say, Bre, I'm quiet because I'm learning. I'm absorbing all this information. I'm still stuck on like sexual compatibility because I shout to the top of my lungs on this podcast about how rebound is like not an option. Not rebound, redemption is not an option. But I love the fact that this is taking us way back, but I love the fact that I did want to highlight that you brought up sexual compatibility because I do think it is a true thing that a lot of people are not aware of. And I feel like a lot of folks feel like because they're in a relationship, because they love this person, because they have all these qualities and all these things, or we're talking about toys, like maybe I can bring toys into something and it can change the situation. If it doesn't, and people just genuinely aren't sexually compatible with one another, I'm just not a firm believer in putting a square through a circle. Like if it doesn't fit, it's just not for you. And I do think it's hard when it comes down to couples that are married, and if we bring in religious aspects, those that have waited and realize it's after marriage, or fortunate for some that try things before marriage that can make that decision, way before they say I do, or in the engagement phase. It's just harder when you're in it and you have to dip because you're not sexually compatible with one another, but you stick it out because you've already said I do and you have to be there, or you feel like you have to be there. So I just want to take 2 seconds before we jump to the next segment to thank you for sharing that, because that's very insightful. It confirms everything I feel like I've been through.
Hey, so if you don't believe people can be taught can learn to be sexually compatible though?
No, she said that.
She didn't.
Are you asking me or are you asking Brittany?
I'm not asking Brittany. I'm asking you, Bre.
But
Yes. I think in a lot of cases that could happen. But again, it kind of just depends on, have you already explored everything? Have you had these conversations? Do you both care enough to explore these things together? Or have you tried everything under the sun and it's still just not working out? Like, there are a lot of factors that can go into that. Or if your body's simply telling you this person is a no, that's another important thing too. To listen to.
I also feel like you can't judge that off of one try though.
Right.
Like,
That's why I'm emphasizing you have to keep trying. It can't just be like a one and done deal.
Yeah,
some
one
people
and done.
So, Princess, you believe in the redemption round?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I decided. All right, man. We about to get in a fair foul, then we gonna get up out of here. All right. So, fair or foul? Your partner should learn how to satisfy all your sexual needs. Is that fair or is that foul? Appreciate everybody that's tapping in the chat right now, man. Please make sure you subscribe to the page. And I want to see everybody tell me if is that fair or foul. So, panel, you should learn to satisfy all your partner's sexual needs, fair or foul.
I think that's.
I think it's fair.
I think it's fair.
The only reason why I'm gonna say foul is because what if it's one of those hard hell no's?
Okay.
I think it's fair if you want to explore, yes. But yeah, to kind of get to you, if it is a hard no, you can't push someone's hard no in their limits.
Yeah.
I agree. No means no. No means no.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, doesn't that open the door? I'm not being funny, but like, doesn't that look, if somebody has an overwhelming need that's not being addressed, like, wouldn't that open the door?
To what?
To cheating?
I'm not saying what's next. I'm just saying.
Okay.
But that stress that goes back to the point we were talking about earlier about communication. Because I feel like if you have a strong desire for something, that should have been communicated from the jump. Because if I'm not into it, like, I'm gonna tell you right now, we're not doing we're not doing that. I'm not doing that because I'm not comfortable doing that. So then, then the decision can be made to pursue the relationship or not.
Yeah, and I would also just say, like, don't leave room for assumptions. Like, there can be so many what ifs to every situation. But if you really want to know, just ask. Have that conversation with your partner. It may be tough. It may be uncomfortable. It may be awkward. You may not hear what you want to hear. But it's necessary, especially if you truly care about that relationship and that person and wanting to have a better relationship and better sex.
So can I ask, what's the what's your thoughts on when one person has a requirement that they're not willing to fulfill themselves?
When you say,
or has a need or a want that they're not willing to fulfill themselves to their partner. What's your thoughts on that?
Closed mouths don't get fed.
No,
like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, what are you asking specifically?
So like, if somebody wants you to do something that they won't do to you.
Oh, well, that's selfish.
Okay, yeah, like
it happens every day. Y'all call it something. It happens every day. I know. Hey, look, man.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to get in the trick bag. Huh?
So you're saying that you're asking if it's okay for you to ask a partner to do something that you wouldn't want done to you. Is that your question?
So man, golly, I'm about to get in the trick bag. Okay, this is what I mean. I've seen situations where a lady may like for something to happen to her, but she doesn't do that. That's what I mean.
Like what?
Come on, Bre. Damn, man. So I'm trying to stay out the trick bag.
Hold on. So if there's a woman, right, and she's like, I want you to perform oral sex on me, but do not ask me to perform oral sex on you because it's not happening. That's what Keenan's talking about.
Okay, so is that a specific hard yes or hard no? If you're like, I need oral sex in order to be sexually aroused and to have sex with you, but that person is saying a hard no, are we sexually compatible at that point?
No.
I'm asking the audience. What do y'all think?
No.
Like, yeah.
No, okay, no. Okay, this is my thing. I agree, but I think that happens more times than not. Like, I get the oral example, but I also feel like your sexual needs, it can't be on a wild meter of 10, but what you like to, even if your sexual needs can't be on a wild meter of 10, but what you willing to give to be on a 4 is what I'm saying. Because even though it may not be compatibility in the sense that, like, I'm not exchanging act for act, but like, if I ask for a whole lot of but I just don't feel like I don't want to say no bad terms.
Like reciprocity, you're not getting what you're giving in return. Is that what you're trying to get to?
Yeah.
Like, again, like, I feel that brings us back to, if you feel like you're giving more, whether that's sexually or in a relationship, and you're not getting back in return, you no longer have reciprocity. That's necessary for intimacy. So, like, if you're missing that very important component, What do you have? That's going to be a struggle to try to make work.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I ain't saying nothing else. I ain't getting in the trick bag no more.
Yeah.
All right, Marcus Sale, we have a comment. He says, depends. Need to have sex with you this time? Nah. Needed to have sex with only you? Absolutely. Nah.
Yeah. If it's a situation to where a person doesn't want to have sex in that moment, that's completely different than like you getting into the specifics of certain desires. At that point, that person may not be in the mood. They could be tired. You know, there could be so many things going on to where they don't want to have sex at that moment. But that I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say that like you should end the relationship immediately just because they're not on the same page with you every single time. It takes a conversation. It takes addressing the issue, getting to the root, and then seeing how you can move forward, whatever adjustments, whatever options you need to take in order to move forward and stay healthy and on the same page.
So what are some we'll close out here soon. Hey, Marcus L is crazy, man. Hey, appreciate you tapping in, bro. Hey, he said see the expert agrees with me. What are some
She did not.
Princess, go
I'll
ahead,
say
man.
it. You don't have to say it. She did not. But go ahead.
So what are some red flags that you see when couples are having the non-sexual compatibility, but they may not know how to communicate that to each other? Like what do you say that looks like without it being said? Because people may not know what that looks like in their relationship. Does that make sense?
So are you
What I'm
asking
asking
like
you?
a non-sexual way, like how that can show up in the relationship?
Yeah,
Like outside of the bedroom?
Yep.
That can definitely look like, you know, not having conversations, not having like serious conversations, avoiding like very important topics, making certain assumptions without getting like direct answers or direct information from the partner, being controlling or trying to kind of like only say what works for you works for us. You know what I'm saying? Like a person being that one person that's in control, not wanting to hear the input of the other person. And then also just lack of vulnerability. Like there's only so much you can do and so many things that one person can work on in the relationship. If that other person isn't willing to put in the same work, they're not willing to show up in the same way, that's never going to work. You're never going to be able to find that balance because there's one person that's going above and beyond while the other person stays below. You're never going to find that balance. So I would say, yeah, that would definitely be, all of those would definitely be red flags. And that would also still, again, reflect in the bedroom. Any type of relationship issue can definitely directly reflect to your sex life.
Okay. So do y'all have anything else on the fair file? I know my camera went out. Do y'all have anything else on the fair file?
No.
No.
Hey, so Bre, could you tell everybody where they can tap in with you at, your socials,
Yes.
where they can find you, your exact range of services, all the above?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Sexology with Bre, and that's Bre with an E, BRE. And then if you go to my website, my company is Ashe Sexual Wellness. So if you go to ashesexualwellness.com, you can see all of the services listed there. I have pleasure product consultation. So if you're looking into like wanting to explore toys, wanting to explore kink and wanting to like figure out what that may look like specifically for you or your relationship, that's definitely a service I like to offer to clients. I also do sex and relationship coaching. So if you have a sexual concern like low libido or, you know, not keeping erections or vaginal pain during sex, things like that, or just wanting to have better sex in your relationship, how to have those conversations, things like that. I do sex and relationship coaching, and then I also do sexual workshops, kind of like how we all just sat here and I answered questions and we had really great discussions about sex and sexuality and relationships. I do curated workshops about specific topics surrounding sex and sexuality. The next one I have is going to be in March about pleasure for vulvas. It's called Cliteracy Class. So you will be learning how to please those with a vulva, things like erogenous zones, pleasure mapping, how to have those conversations with your partner about it, specific like techniques and things like that. Those are a really great way to where, again, like if you're just wanting to do some research or wanting to learn a little bit more, I also open up at the very end of those to ask specific questions if we have time. And then any other like questions, you can always reach out on social media. I'm mostly on Instagram. I do weekly Q&As, and then just general sex ed, sexual health posts as well.
Bet. So thank you all for tapping in with us on this episode of Millennials vs. World. Bre, thank you so much for coming through, dropping knowledge, dealing with all our questions, dealing with the crowd. Thank you. This has been another episode of Millennials vs. World. It's your boy K.Mims. I got the ladies of the Monday Night Crew, Miss Brittany, Asia, and Princess, and we have Bre, Sexology with Bre. This is Millennials vs. World, and we are out.